and they have no intention of going back. We know how to fix this economy, quote unquote. They won't do it. They don't want to do it. I've had the guts to say that what you see going on in this economy, the attack on the currency, the attack on the fiscal house that is our government, this is intentional. These aren't mistakes. These things aren't happening in a vacuum. These are governmental policies under people that we've put in charge of our government. And that's what they're doing. Listen to this. USA Today. Federal tax revenue plunged $138 billion, or 34% in April versus a year ago. The biggest April drop since 1981. What's the answer? Immediate, systemic, deep cuts in taxes, so that the private sector has money to do what the private sector does. But instead, they're talking about more taxes. All kinds of taxes. New taxes, bigger taxes, income taxes, national sales taxes, nuisance taxes. 6 million people lost jobs in the 12 months ended in April, and that means far fewer dollars from income taxes. Income tax revenue dropped 44% from a year ago. These are staggering numbers. It's one of the drivers of the ongoing expansion of the federal budget deficit, said John Lonsky, chief economist for Moody's Investors Services. The CBO, Congressional Budget Office, projects a $1.7 trillion budget deficit for this year alone. The other deficit driver is government spending, which is the main culprit for the federal budget deficit. Government spending, lest we forget that phony stimulus bill, all the wasted money, hundreds of billions of dollars. Now they say they don't have enough money for health care. Do you think they have trust funds and segregated accounts for roads, for health care, for retirement? This is all a massive slush fund from which these politicians use your hard-earned money to control you, to reward their friends and their constituents. This is the greatest scam ever perpetrated against the American people. We have a government that's acting like a rogue government. Now, I am attacked for making statements like this. Too damn bad. I mean every word of it. I have never seen anything like this, and neither of you. Neither of you. The White House thinks that tax revenue will increase in 2011, thanks in part to their stimulus package, says a report from AIER, an independent research institute. But it warns even if that does happen, the administration also projects that government spending will be so much higher each year that large deficits will continue and the national debt held by the public will double over the next 10 years. Ladies and gentlemen, our national debt, created from the day this republic was founded to today, will double in one 10-year period. So outrageous and irresponsible is Barack Obama and all his flunkies. And it is time to tie these decisions and these policies and their consequences to the man who's in the White House directing all this and ordering all this, and that would be Barack Obama. None of this would be happening but for him. He's demanding it. The most inexperienced man to ever sit in the Oval Office. And it shows. And it shows. The government may have a hard time trimming spending to reduce the deficit when the recession ends. The 77 million baby boomers, those born in 1946 through 64, will start tapping their federal retirement benefits soon, which means increased government outlays for Social Security and Medicare. Oh, have you heard? They're going bankrupt. Have you heard? Unfunded obligations of those programs and others of over $53 trillion. And there will be no way out. There will be far more beneficiaries than contributors. And that on top of national health care, that on top of a massive deficit created over the next 10 years. They're not only going to have a VAT tax, they're going to have a massive VAT tax. They're not only going to have to tax millionaires, but they're going to have to define anybody who makes a buck as a millionaire. They're going to be taking money and controlling private property and limiting your liberty day after day, week after week, month after month, year after year. And I feel sorry for the young people of this country. This is, I've said it before, the most gluttonous, unaccountable, irresponsible generation this nation has ever known. This is the most unaccountable, gluttonous, irresponsible administration this country has ever known. We are putting in place impossible obstacles for future generations. We are destroying the currency and the full faith and credit of the United States government. That is you and me. We are destroying industrial institutions in this nation. Chrysler and GM should have been free to go through legal bankruptcies, and instead, and I'll get to this later, in a proposal that may well be the final proposal, 70% of GM will be owned by the government, 20% will be owned by the UAW, meaning 90% of that automobile company will be owned by the government and the UAW. Oh my God, just think about it. Just think about it. And the worst has yet to come. When there are oil and gasoline and electricity shortages, we are not drilling, we are not refining, we are not expanding the electric grid. We have people in the bureaucracy from the Interior Department to the EPA and everything in between that are killing all efforts to do more of these things. They're destroying what was already in place. This is what happens when you turn the country over to leftist ideologues who are inexperienced in matters relating to the real world, but can paint a picture of a utopian society that will sweep you off your feet. You young people out there, and that means anybody, say from ages 16 to 40. Some of you may not think you're that young, but you are. You young people out there who voted for Obama, who vote for these statist Democrats, you're voting to deny yourself liberty and opportunity and wealth. You're voting against your own best interests. You're voting to empower the authority of the central government. You're voting to harm yourselves. And if it's the last thing I do, I want to make this as clear as possible whenever I can. Because it is crucial that the next generation understand what this generation of politicians and bureaucrats is doing to them and their designs on them. Every young person in this country should be rejecting statism, should be rejecting Obama and Pelosi and Reid. Every one of them. And if they knew what these people were doing to them, if they knew how they were hampering them, if they knew how they were punishing them, they would. That's our job as parents and grandparents. That's our jobs as conservatives. This is what the Republican Party must stand for. This is what the Republican Party must articulate and get across to the next generation. We stand for you. We stand for you against the statists. We stand for you against Obama. We stand for you against Pelosi and Reid. We stand for you against people who are robbing you blind, who are taking money that you haven't even earned yet. We stand for your liberty, your opportunity. They stand for a gluttonous, out-of-control government that's robbing you blind.